Welcome, everybody. We're back to our study in Genesis. We're here with the group, and everybody's been, more and more folks are reading ahead, which is really excellent. It makes it easier to answer questions.
Is that recording?
Yes, it's recording right now. Yeah, and as we're getting through, we're getting in some heavy stuff here in Genesis right now. So we're in Genesis chapter 29 tonight. However, as it is our custom, we do our review of Genesis chapter 28, just to be able to help people get caught up. And I've been throwing in a lot of stuff here, too, because this story, it's important to have the story continuance here. We talk about the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We've talked a lot about their wives. Abraham married to Sarah, and then Isaac married to Rebekah. And now we're going to be dealing with Jacob a lot. There's a lot to deal with Jacob over. So one of the things we've been talking about is we've been giving God another name or an adjective to describe him. We've been calling him the God of...
Was your father?
He is the father. But,
Abraham.
Yeah, but we're calling God something because he
Oh.
keeps making these things. And another word for it is covenant.
God Almighty?
He is God Almighty.
Promise.
God of promise, that's right. We've been talking about he is the God of promise. And the reason why is he's making all these promises or all these covenants. Yes,
What's
ma'am.
the Hebrew term for that?
Good question. I don't know.
Because it's funny you were saying that because I have a pamphlet upstairs that had the many Hebrew
Many names of games, right?
and I didn't
Jehovah
see it.
Jireh, Jehovah... Yeah,
And
he's...
there was another one too.
Right, right. Now, I don't know what the
But when you
Hebrew
said
term...
that, I don't
Yeah.
know what that is.
The God of promise is... One of the promises... These are the promises he's been making to Abraham. You will be the father of many nations. Your descendants will be greater than the stars in the heaven and the sands on the beach.
Arabs.
These are things that you're going to experience, Abraham, which is very interesting, seeing that he didn't have a son until late in his life, and he would have Isaac. So then Isaac then also becomes the son of promise. Remember, Abraham had another son, but it was Ishmael through Hagar, his wife's maidservant, not through Sarah. Sarah is the wife of promise, and her son is the son of promise. That would continue then for Isaac. Isaac, Rebekah's chosen, brought to him to be his wife. And then Rebekah has two sons, Jacob and Esau. And we saw the struggle that went on. That's what we talked about a lot last week, the struggle that went on between Jacob and Esau. Esau's the older of the two. Yet Jacob steals his birthright and then later steals his blessing. Jacob is an usurper. He undermines. That's important to remember for tonight's study. He is an underminer, is what he does. Not exactly walking with God. But last week, we read Jacob's dream. This is Jacob now. He's left his father and his mother. He's being sent off to a place where his uncle lives, Laban. And he sleeps in the desert one night and has a dream. Jacob's ladder. All right. Also the stairway to heaven. Right.
We were joking about
Yeah. Okay. For all you Led Zeppelin fans, that's Stairway to Heaven. So what did he see when he was looking into heaven?
God looking
Saw
down.
stairs. He saw stairs. Who were going up and down the stairs?
Angels.
Angels, right? He sees God, what? Standing, sitting, laying down, what?
Standing up.
Standing up, which is the same thing that Stephen, the martyr, the first martyr, sees while he is being stoned to death. He looks into heaven, sees Jesus standing. Very unusual. All right. Sees Jesus standing. Jesus had talked about this also, about the angels coming up and down. All right. So this is something very important. So now, Jacob is given some directions, all right, as he now is having this dream. I am the Lord, the God. This is Genesis chapter 28, verse 13. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. So there's three patriarchs. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you. See these promises he's making? This is the God of promise. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. Okay, Jacob hasn't been talking about God very much up until this point. He's been doing inappropriate things, as young men do. But you can see God calling him. This is his road to Damascus experience. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. This is Bethel. Bethel meaning house of God. Verse 18, early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed on his head, and he set up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. He called the place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I've set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. Okay. So now this is Jacob's turn. This is where he now begins to follow God. Okay. All right.
Give him a tenth.
So we up to speed? Everybody have any questions or comments? Okay, so here we have Jacob leaving his parents, and he's on his way to Padan Aram. So now we're in Genesis chapter 29. We'll begin in verse 1. Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the field with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would turn the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, my brothers, where are you from? We're from Haran, they replied. He said to them, do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson? Yes, we know him, they answered. Then Jacob asked them, is he well? Yes, he is, they said. And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. Yeah, this should sound familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Look, he said, the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to the pasture. We can't, they replied, until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep. While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, you are my own flesh and blood. After Jacob had stayed with him for just a whole month, Laban said to him, just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger one was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to lie with her. Okay, now wait a second. We'll come back, obviously, to all of this. But I want you to point out to you that what Jacob said to Laban. He says, give me my wife. Okay, just pause. Okay. Verse 22. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah to his daughter as her maidservant. Oh boy, that's going to get real important next chapter.
Yep.
Good features. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of week." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant girl Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maidservant. Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. Oy vey. I throw the oy vey in there, so I just want you to know. Right? And he worked for Laban for another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. My favorite sandwich. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." So she named him Simeon. Again she conceived, and when she had given birth to a son, she said, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So he was named Levi. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. A lot of things. A lot of stuff to talk about. But you really got to see this, really more than anything else, like the laying of a foundation to build a house upon. Okay? Because there's a lot going to go on for a while here. It is this family. We're going to go through all the sons. And guess what? You know how many sons there are going to be? How many? 12. 12 sons. There'll be 12 tribes of Israel. All right? These are the 12 tribes of Israel. They've been scattered through all over the earth. That's when God says, "I'll be sending you out east, west, north, and south." They're going to be scattered all over the earth. So we will eventually come up with these 12. And we'll learn a lot more about these sons, because Genesis ends with the story of one of the sons. All right? By the way, just keep kicking around your head. All right? Which son are we going to be we're going to be finishing the book of Genesis on, and who's his mom? Yeah, and who's his mom going to be? All right? So we're going to have a lot of fun with this, all right, as we go through. But this is it. This is the end of all the family line. You're going to meet these 12 sons, and then that's going to be it. That's how we'll finish Genesis. All right? So let's go back to verse 1. Chapter 29. Then Jacob continued on his journey. So this is after he's had his dream. And he came to the land of eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the field with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. What does this remind you of? Because he's coming in looking for a wife.
Well, we haven't gotten to it, but the well.
No, it's backwards. We got this. This should be familiar to you. The same.
And at the well, will you give me the water? And feed
there you go.
sheep?
Right. So this is same. This is how Isaac got Rebekah.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was Abraham's servant that went looking for a wife for Abraham's son. All right.
She would give him water and feed his sheep.
There you go.
Him asking.
Right. And
camels.
The camels. Right, the camels. But the key thing is it involves a well. Okay, you've heard the story. Again, it's probably going to all pass away with our generations. Okay, but what do we mean by fountain water talk? You've ever heard that term?
Talking around the fountain?
Yeah, talking around the fountain.
Well, they have to be there a long time, so they ain't going to be ignorant and not talk to each other.
But even to this day, people still
hang around.
They hang around a
It's
water cooler, right? A water cooler talk. You hear about that in the Navy. we have a term for it. It's called scuttlebutt.
Yeah.
That's where there's a place you go to get drinks from. Everybody gathers together. That's where they talk. It's all around the water hole, and that's what's happening here. Wells are the watering hole. This is where everybody gathers, and they're gathering to water their sheep, so that this is their primary source of income is shepherds. It's a great story, huh? So here they're going, and so just like with Isaac's, with Abraham's servant looking for Isaac's wife,
Hello.
here you have Jacob doing the same thing, and he comes to a well. Not uncommon. So let's see what happens. All right, we're now in verse 2. There he saw a well in the field with the 3 flocks of sheep lying near it because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. One of the reasons they waited for everybody to get there, because the stone is so heavy, they needed multiple men to be able to move the stone. Watch what happens, though. Verse 3, when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. That protects the well. Yeah, absolutely. This is the idea is to protect the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "From Haran," they replied. He said to them, "Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said. And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. Okay? So just like with Rebekah, this is how she's identified. "Look," he said, "the sun is still high. It's not time for the flocks to be gathered, to pull them all back together and go out and let them eat. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Right? By the way, shepherding isn't that easy of a job. I mean, it's not like, I don't want to make it sound like they're cattle drivers, which obviously is a lot more difficult. The cattle are a lot bigger than sheep. But shepherding is a lot of hard work, chasing these suckers around. And I don't know if they had sheepdogs. I'm not familiar with enough what's going on there, but this is not easy. And this is a woman who does it. All right? We're going back to Rebekah. I'm thinking about her. All right. For she was a shepherdess. This is verse 10. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep, he went over and all by his onesie rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. He's now serving. Again, he's been touched by God. I think there's a lot of things going on here that's changing Jacob. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. That's strictly a Middle Eastern mitzvah. All right, it's just giving somebody a kiss on the cheek. This was not meant to be romantic. In fact, he's going to kiss his uncle also. All right, it's just that this is a common thing for them to do. But he wept aloud. All right, there's 2 ways to cry. No, 3 actually. Three ways to cry. 2 of them are related. When do you cry?
When you're sad.
When you're very sad. When you're full of joy, which is what this is right here. The other one is when you're in pain. When something, ow, you can start crying. All right? So he's weeping with joy. I think that first of all, remember, he's gone through an awful lot.
Overwhelmed.
He's overwhelmed. He's gone through a lot. I don't know how long he spent in the desert trying to get there also. He was alone. That's not easy. Remember, Abraham's servant, when he came looking for Rebekah, had others with him, and they were on camel and stuff. You don't hear any mention. He's hoofing it. He's walking to get to there. So now he arrives, and he is now connected. Remember, he actually made the deal with God that God would carry him through all this, and then also return him. So there's a lot more to go here. So verse 12, he had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and son of Rebekah. So Rachel ran and told her father Laban. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." You know, my family. Mishpocha. All right. After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." What should we take away from that? I mean, he's working for him. Why would he? He's been there for a month. All right. He already started watering his sheep the minute he saw them. What do you think Jacob's doing for that month? Remember, he used to hang around the tents back home when he was with his dad and his mom, and his brother would go out hunting. What do you think Jacob's doing this whole month? That is inferred by Laban's statement.
Just keeping the tittle in the land and.
Yep, he's working.
He was showing the father,
Laban.
he was showing Rachel's father that he was a worker. And by working, the people around there were probably feeding them, so we didn't have to worry about eating or of having a place
Exactly
to
right.
sleep.
Yep. Is he being paid?
No.
No.
But he didn't care about being paid.
Not important to him.
He just wanted to get Rachel, and he was going to do anything.
Well, that's coming. That's a great inference. That's a great inference because that's
Keep on
coming.
working, show the father what a good worker I am and a provider.
This is a very different Jacob, though, isn't he? Than what he was back home with Isaac and Rebecca.
different.
Very different, and very much like his mother when she was young. Yeah, I think that's the road to Damascus experience that he had. All right, that was one heck of a long road, huh?
Gave
All
him
right.
something worth working for.
Yeah, and she didn't.
Well, there's no question about that, but that deal hasn't been made yet.
No, but maybe in his mind it is.
Or maybe he is, and maybe he's being patient. The fact of the matter is, he's not the one that asked.
Oh, he's real patient.
He's very patient. Oh, yeah, well, we're going to find out how patient he is.
But at the beginning, it wasn't his fault when Rebecca sent him when he had to leave anyway. The whole story, how he had to leave. Hurry up, go, your brother's going to kill you,
Right.
So he had to flee.
Yeah.
So now,
Well, he's under a lot of
with all
duress.
that talk, he must have,
Yeah, there's a little humility going on here.
poor guy.
All right,
Yeah.
and he's going to get some of his own. He's going to get a taste of his own medicine, which we're seeing a lot of, right? Okay.
This is good.
Yeah, this is God's soap opera. All right. So Laban asks him, "Tell me what your wages should be." Okay. Verse 16. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. Okay, now that does not necessarily mean that she needed glasses. Probably blurry, or not really very, very pretty eyes. Again, beauty is in the eyes often.
Delicate.
Yeah, could be. We really don't know for sure. But she was not attractive. Not nearly as much as her younger sister. All right? But God bless you. But Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you, Laban, 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel."
And no man, I can't think of no man that's going to wait on any woman today for 7 years. He says, "Sir,
No.
I'd like to get your daughter." 7 years, sir. He probably going to find somebody else.
Exactly right. I mean, I'm lucky enough I can talk to people, just say, can you guys just be friends for a while?
I know.
All right? Just work out friendship,
And he's
okay?
waiting
7
7
months.
long years.
Well, and working right alongside her, okay? And so,
That's not even promised.
and again, but see, now we're learning how much of a man of promise Jacob is.
Yeah. Going on faith, too.
Yeah, big time going on faith.
Whoa.
Big time going on faith.
Yeah.
So
wow.
so you can understand why Jacob is so important in the Genesis story. Laban says, "Yep, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Let me keep it in the family. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. If my wife is here, she'd go,
Yeah,
"Isn't that so sweet?"
it is sweet.
It is sweet. Verse 21. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to lie with her." Remember, I told you to remember this. Okay. He kind of left something out there when he said that. He said, "Give me my wife."
Rachel.
He didn't say, "Give me my Rachel."
No.
Okay. So verse 22. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast, right? This is how weddings were done in those days. All right? We're going to bring everybody together. We're going to kill the fatted calf. We're going to have a party. Now, things happen at parties that cause you to have to not have good judgment. That's right. You can drink and imbibe and get a little carried away, which could adversely affect you. And And again, because of the news and things that are going on in our lives today, we're becoming much more familiar with how Middle Eastern women attire themselves. Veils are very common. All right. So Laban brought them all together, but when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah, I just want you to remember that for next chapter, to his daughter and her maids as her maidservant. When morning came, there was Leah! My Bible actually has the exclamation point. So Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? Who is Jacob to be talking about deceiving people?
Yeah.
He's a deceiver.
He is the usurper. Yeah, he deceived who? Two people. Who did he deceive?
But he was obeying his mother when he was being
His brother.
6 of one, half a dozen of his brother
His father.
and his father. Right? Yeah, I'm sorry. The devil made me do it. Doesn't work here. Okay? We're still responsible.
Been a devil.
Yeah,
She
well
pushed
remember, she was looking out for something else, too. She may have been looking out for the progeny. She was, again, seeing the direction Esau was going in. She was trying to, she was doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Again, that's still wrong. All right? So this is the term, this is the pot calling the kettle black. This is just, again, so he's getting his upcoming, what's it called? What's the British term?
25.
Yeah, but what's
I'm sorry.
up and coming when you get your just desserts?
Payback.
Yeah, but there's a British term for it. I can't remember what it is, but it'll come to me. Verse 26, Laban replied, it is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Oh yeah, not just here.
That's all over.
That's very common. Finish this daughter's bridal week. That means he stays with her for 7 days. Then we will give you the younger one also in return for...
Another 7 years.
Isn't that such a neat thing? But he loves...
Is he going to do the work first, or is he getting the...
He has to do the 7 years first. And
Yes.
there's some...
Yeah.
You can
He gets
interpret
it
this
right
thing
away.
both ways, but no, he has to wait 7 more years. He has to wait 7 more years for her. Which for him is no big deal because
Because of his love for her.
it's going to be like days.
See, with me, it would be my thinking would be the complete opposite.
It would be
it seemed like it
agony.
forever.
Agony.
Because I want what I want.
Yeah, the heart wants what the heart wants. Right?
Yeah.
Verse 28, and Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife, but that's later on. Laban gave his servant girl Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maidservant. Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. Oh, we always get into trouble when that happens. Aren't we always getting in trouble when that happens?
And he worked for Laban for
And he
another
worked for Laban
7
for
years.
another 7 years. All right.
Oh, boy.
Yep. Oh, it's only going to get worse. Again,
So much
this
of
just...
that going on in those days, it seems unreal.
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. But this is long before Christ. This is long before we started really building this idea of a holy life.
Yeah.
We started really talking about how to glorify God in our marriages and our families and everything. And also again, there's other things affecting them as well, other customs and practices in the people that they're around. Remember, the reason why Jews become kosher is to keep them from falling into these traps. We can talk a lot more about that.
everybody.
Yep.
It goes with everybody, Jacob, doesn't it?
Yep. Oh yeah.
It goes with Bilhah as,
Okay, are you reading ahead?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's okay. It's all right with me. We can talk a little bit about that. But yeah. Well, it's the same mistake too, right? What's the same mistake that happens?
Yeah.
Right. Rachel can't get pregnant, right?
Nope.
So what do? Same thing Sarah did. All
Others, yeah.
The
right.
maidservant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Start with the maidservant.
He goes with the servant, yeah.
All right. So let's finish 29 first. Verse 31. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb. So God favors Leah. Only because she was not loved. But Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben. For she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now. When we start reading about Joseph, you're going to hear these names all over the place. All right. But some of these names are really important to remember forever. Reuben isn't one of them. He's going to have a tribe named Reuben after him. All right. But Reuben is not that. He's the oldest son. We'll see him come back later on. All right. But there's the other ones become much more important. Yes, dear.
Are these people kind of like the great-great-great-grandchildren of Abraham?
Yes. They're the great.
So they would have heard of the story of how Auntie
Oh, yeah.
Sarah did that. So
Great-grandmother.
popped in their head, well, she did it. Maybe we can try it.
I also think it's a common custom for the
To
peoples of that
pass it
time
down.
to, in order to be able to ensure heirs. Look, the kings throughout all of history have done the same thing. When their queen could not produce a son, they would find another way to get a son.
But they call it bloodly related. I mean, they don't see like we call it the step or the distance.
Right.
But they just call it it's
Son.
family,
Right.
family,
Absolutely.
blood, and that's
Yeah.
just how they call
That's it. That's it.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, we just have a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still in verse 32. It is because the Lord has seen my misery, surely my husband will love me now. Isn't that sad?
I
Leah
know.
wants Jacob to love her.
My husband didn't want the youngest daughter because it was a boy.
Oh,
I mean, it's a girl.
a
And
girl, not a boy.
He wanted a boy, and he had nothing to do with her.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so sad.
That's a common thing, like my brother, him and his wife had a second child.
Right.
Because their marriage was on the rocks, and they thought it would make things better, and
It didn't. That never makes anything
they ended up
better.
getting
No,
divorced.
no. Yeah. There were other issues they needed to deal with. Yeah, so our heart's going to break for Leah, and they may as well. But then again, Leah, you'll find out, has a whole lot going for her. Okay. So now again, we're in verse 33. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, He gave me this one too." So she named him Simeon. Okay, very popular name also. Verse 34, again she conceived, and when she gave her birth to a son, she said, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So he was named Levi. Very important. The Levites, the descendants of Levi, are the priests. This is the Levitical line. It is absolutely critical to understanding Judaism. Okay, and what goes on later on in history. So this is going to be the line of Levi, or the Levites. All right? There's even a book named after them, the Leviticus. Verse 35. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Thank goodness. So she named him Judah. And she stopped having children, at least for now. Judah. That's a very important line. Who comes? That's right. Praise. Who comes from the line of Judah? First, Melech David, King David, and eventually Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, is going to come from Judah. Leah's son. Okay? And we get more. We have many more to meet. But this is so important. This is where the term Jew comes from.
Rachel must have been pretty sad too to know that the guy that she was going to marry was all of a sudden promised off to somebody else, that she had to wait 7 long years of suffering watching this woman flirt with her husband. Well,
Yeah.
to be her husband.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Poor thing.
Oh, we got.
Oh, she got jealous of her.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Several
See,
years
yeah,
to
good.
watch
Good.
them,
Did you?
though. That's a
You've been
long
reading, that's
time.
right.
Here's my love.
Yeah.
She got jealous of her.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of bad things happen whenever you're.
Jealousy is the worst sickness I think you
And
can
it's a
have.
sin.
And
So
envy,
That's why he
yeah,
showed
envy.
us stuff to teach us.
Absolutely. Yeah, resentment's going to follow. There's going to be a lot. Again, this is God's soap opera. A lot of struggles are going to go in through all of this. But this is so important. You look at the sons. Look at the 12 sons as bricks that were laying for a foundation. Because you're not going to understand the rest of Genesis unless you understand this. And frankly speaking, you won't understand the rest of the Bible unless you understand what's happening here with these 12 brothers. All right, because it plays throughout all the Bible, all the way up to including the time of Christ.
Yeah.
There's constantly, the name Simeon, that should bring somebody a name right to mind right off the bat.
Simon.
Yeah,
Simon, yeah,
Yep.
Simeon, yeah.
but Simeon was,
It's not Samson.
no, think about Jesus.
Oh, Simon.
Yeah.
Simon.
Right.
It's-
Not
it's-
Simeon. Simeon's the old man.
I call it Simon, it's
no,
easy
but
to remember.
Simeon.
Simon.
No, but
No,
you're
I'm
calling
talking
it
about Simeon. Anyways, but there's more to talk about that as we go along. Questions and comments?
There's a lot of questions, I don't know if we'll get them all answered.
Well, it's okay, but keep reading ahead.
Yeah, we keep reading ahead.
And
I
read
always
backwards
ahead.
too, especially if you start to forget somebody.
Yeah.
But this is it. This one's going to get really tough because we buried Abraham. Okay, we'll be burying Isaac, but Jacob sticks with us through the rest of of Genesis, and we just keep adding more and more to this until we come to the very, very end. So there's a lot to cover and a lot to remember, but it's wonderful. And especially when we go into the Passover. Because we'll be studying this straight through the Passover. And then we'll stop. The Passover will stop. We're going to go back to Moses and Christ himself. And we'll talk about being free from the bondage of sin.
But why is it in those days? I mean, it was a sin, but if you don't like this one person, you can always get another wife. And I mean, that's...
Oh, they're doing it today.
But the word
They're doing
divorce
it
doesn't
today,
come...
But in that time, you wouldn't think that they would be doing something like that, but they did.
Yeah.
The laws wasn't so fulfilled back
Yeah.
then. They was fulfilling as we did bad things back then. And later
Yeah,
on,
but still, there's
Right.
a lot of fooling around going on.
Genesis,
they were just playing on human beings back then. They didn't know any better.
there weren't enough laws laid out yet.
I
Building
guess not,
families.
yeah.
But Genesis
Yeah,
already
they were
explains that.
creating
A
as it
woman and a
went.
man come together to make one.
That's it.
That God's law is already clear, but they're
Yeah.
not following that.
No.
So there's the book of Genesis, then there's the book of Exodus. Those are both big story books, right? Genesis, and then Leviticus comes in, and the law comes in. Remember, Moses is the lawgiver.
Yeah.
Moses is the one who starts bringing God's law down. So there's the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, Ten Commandments.
Okay? So that starts coming down. So then there's Leviticus, Deuteronomy, all right? Numbers. This is where the law is really, really played out. Yep. And there's a lot of work done there to be able to help form this nation, all right, called
Yeah, they
Israel,
had to, yeah.
and the Jews, and they start following these things. And this is, again, when Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking to the joint session of Congress, they have a big bust of Moses sitting right there because Moses is so very important to the idea of giving law. This is what Congress does.
Yeah.
Came with the Bible.
See how much of an effect the Bible has had on our country?
Yep.
That's why it's so important to know the Bible. As an American, it's important as an American to know the Bible. Even if you don't have to believe it, just to know where the idea of laws come
I
from.
wonder if that Christian store in Dartmouth has that kind of.
All right.
Even a newborn baby, they learn the rules and the laws as they go. They don't. You don't just say, "Well, you're born. Here's the book of rules." You got as they do something wrong, you're straightening out as you go. So I guess that's kind of like us. We get straightened out as they went.
This book, and I can't find
So true.
That's very interesting.
It is. It's fascinating. And it is. Genesis, again, you get, if you get, like we talked about before, if you get stuck on a desert island, you can only have two books of the Bible. You should have Genesis and John. That's what you need.
Genesis and John.
Genesis and John. That's all you really, really need. All right, but you got to see the
beginning
fall of
and the
man.
end.
Well, you got to see the fall of man, and how screwed up we really are, and how much God loves us, and how much He promises to take care of us, and then you got to see the promise fulfilled in Jesus. It's that
It's
easy.
like Alpha and Omega.
Alpha and Omega. All right. Good night, everybody.